All right, so we are live, everyone. My name is Jesse, and I am with Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. For those joining us for the first time, and we do have a few groups joining us for the first time today.
Just let me know when I'm in your way.
Conservation, adventure, and science into classrooms around the world. And today, we are continuing our Epic Oceans Week celebration. So for those of you who did not know, yesterday, June 8th, is Oceans Day, celebrated around the world with a slew of events, calls to action, and more. And so all week long, as always, we are blasting away with tons of amazing ocean programs. I think 20 programs, 25 programs by the end of the week, featuring everything from Galapagos sharks to sea turtles to so much more. So thank you so much for joining us in our celebration. Right now, in addition to hundreds joining in across YouTube from all around the world, and a huge thank you to you, we have a slew of people live on screen with us. So we've got groups joining in Edmonton, in British Columbia, in California, and an entire classroom of students in Yucatan, Merida, Mexico. So such a thrill to have you guys. Nice to have all three of North America's countries all in together. And why we're all here today is for our awesome presentation. So Ripleys Aquarium of Canada, heart of downtown Toronto. They might be closed to the public, but their animal care and education continues. We've covered everything from seahorses to sea turtles to see everything with them, jellyfish and more. But today we're going to do a really special shark feeding with the biggest creature at the aquarium, the Sandtiger sharks. So we're going to learn a lot about them, do a cool feeding, see some really cool stuff, and take a whole whack of questions. Let's get started. Without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Caitlin joining us at the aquarium. Caitlin is one of the lead educators there, so she's going to walk us through all that's going on. And thanks so much for joining us. Let's take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, Jesse, and welcome everyone. So I am standing at the top of our dangerous lagoon tank, our shark lagoon. It is the largest exhibit here at Ripleys Aquarium of Canada. It is about 3 million liters of salt water in front of me. So massive, massive tank. And we also have a tunnel that runs through this. So when we're open, guests can go through the tunnel and get the underwater view. So you will get a dual view because my colleague is downstairs right now with her camera looking in the tunnel. So you'll also be able to see what this looks like from below. Now, right now we have a whole team of people here with me. About half of our animal husbandry team is up here to feed the animals in this tank. So in addition to feeding our large Sandtiger sharks, right now we're also feeding our sawfish, our sandbar sharks, our nurse sharks, and pretty much all the other fish, actually. Pretty much everything in here is getting some form of food right now. We have a couple different feeding procedures going on right now. So if you're looking at sort of a top-down view of this tank, I want you to draw an imaginary dotted line right down the center because we have two different feeding procedures going on either side of the tank. So at the far side, you see Sumera in that nice pink shirt and Andrew over there in the white shirt. They are shoveling food into the tank for the smaller fish. So basically what we're doing is we're trying to distract the small fish in this tank at one side of that dotted line that you guys just imagined. And we're trying to separate them from the larger animals so that they don't get in the way of the feeding over here. Now, in addition to spreading food at the top of the tank, we also have what I like to think of as basically an underwater torpedo system at the bottom of the tank. And we fill these little tubes with food for the smaller fish and they shoot out the bottom of the exhibit. So it again distracts them at the far side of the tank, the far from me side of the tank. And over here, my colleagues along this little catwalk with me are feeding the larger animals. So down at the very, very far end with the red hat on, Michael is feeding our sawfish and stingray, same with Noah. And then we've got our Sandtiger sharks being fed in front of me by Dave. And Ben over here in the orange shirts, hi Ben, is feeding our nurse sharks. So we kind of separate them. They each have their own little feeding station. Oh, splashed me there. And what you'll notice is that since Ben's closest to me, let's zoom in on him. He's got this nice big pole that he's holding on to, and he sticks massive pieces of fish on there. So basically like a whole fish fillet. Thanks, Ben. And then he puts it in the water and the animals that we're trying to target will swim by and basically just grab it off the end. Sometimes we do occasionally accidentally lose a pole if they are tugging a little too hard. So that's essentially how we feed the animals. This kind of feeding is called target training. and it's a form of enrichment for these guys. So basically what enrichment is, it allows us to keep them stimulated, and it means that they have to perform a certain task in order to get their food. So it basically keeps them engaged here at the aquarium. Oh, didn't want that food. Yeah, they each have their food preferences as well, just like humans. So they have food that they really like to eat and some that maybe they're not as fond of. If you're doing anything. We go through about 800 pounds of seafood in a given week here at the aquarium. So lots and lots of seafood. And almost 80% of that goes just to this tank. It has the most number of fish in it, but also the largest species. So it makes sense that these large animals eat the most food because they are the biggest. So therefore, a lot of that food goes just into this one tank. We also will add vitamins to their food. So it is, I do want to preface, it is frozen dead seafood that we're feeding them. So it's not live fish, it's just frozen seafood. And because it is frozen, it does lose a bit of its nutritional value. So sometimes we'll put some vitamins in there to just supplement or boost their nutrition to what it would normally be in the wild as well. So here are some of our nurse sharks right in front of me. We have 3 nurse sharks in this tank.
Nice. Caitlin, I'm just going to interrupt you for 2 seconds. I'd love to go see the underwater view. So Katie, if you could turn your camera a little bit because it's locked where you're horizontal, we'd love to see the underwater view while you're telling us all about him. Fantastic. All right, keep going, Caitlin. Go for it.
Okay, no worries. So when each shark swims by, we also will record how much food they're eating. We can identify every single shark in this tank based on a few different things. Sometimes it's based on freckles on their body. Sometimes they have little cuts or scrapes along their body. Let's see. Oh, that's a great view there. Awesome. So yeah, we can identify every single shark in this tank based on those different markings. For example, we have one named Hawaii, and Hawaii gets that name because there are some freckles on her body that basically resemble the Hawaiian Islands. And Spot Cheek is another one of our sharks, and he gets his name because, you may have guessed it, he has a very prominent spot on his cheek. So we are able to identify all those different animals here at the aquarium, and it allows us to monitor how much food every individual is getting because we calculate how much food they're supposed to receive based on how much they weigh. So they essentially will get a percentage of their body weight every single day. Now we feed them really well here. We often get asked why the sharks don't eat the other fish in the tank. And it's basically because we feed them so well. Our sharks here are fed 3 times a week, which for sharks, that's actually quite a lot. In the wild, these sharks would usually find food once every week, maybe even once every 2 weeks. So it's not as often as most people think. Sharks sort of have this portrayal as being voracious, always hungry predators, but they don't find food that often. The ocean is very vast and it's hard to hunt down fish and catch fish in the ocean. So our sharks are not eating as often as most people think. So for us, feeding them 3 times a week is basically, we're keeping them full all the time. So none of the other fish in the tank basically look appealing to them. They also are very lazy hunters, so they won't expend the energy chasing down the fish in the tank when we're giving them a 5-star restaurant quality meal 3 times a week. And we do that as well. I do want to emphasize, we give them really, really good food. We fillet it in some cases. We get rid of the pieces that their body has a hard time digesting. So we basically do a lot of prep work to make sure that they're getting this top-notch quality seafood. So they're getting a little spoiled by us. And mainly in the wild, sharks would also go after weak or sick fish. So we give them top-notch stuff. We also have about 6,000, give or take, other fish in this tank. So those are the ones, we've got a slew of grunts, we've got look-downs, we've got porkfish. I could go on and on and on. Those smaller ones that are being distracted at the other end of this tank. Now, sharks in the wild, I also want to mention that they are good hunters. They have a sixth sense called electroreception that helps them find their food. And basically what electroreception is if everyone at home wants to do me a favor and just flex your bicep really quick for me right now, every time you move your muscles, that is the result of tiny, tiny little electromagnetic pulses that go through your body. So basically little electric currents. And our sharks and their relatives like stingrays can actually sense those little currents, and it makes them really good at finding food because for some sharks, their eyesight is actually quite poor. So having that extra sense helps them be better hunters when they're out in the ocean. Oh, that's an awesome view. That's a great view of one of our Sandtiger sharks eating. So let's take a moment to talk about their teeth, since that's such a good view of how they eat. So our sharks have teeth that are designed more for shredding fish. So they are quite sharp, which doesn't help the public portrayal of sharks. So they do have those very scary looking teeth, but I want to emphasize that these sharks are what we like to call at the aquarium Hollywood sharks. And basically what that means is they look really, really scary, but they're actually very, very docile. We do have to go into this tank several times a week in order to clean it. So we do have divers who go straight in this tank with them to do their diving, and these are very docile sharks. Now, despite their teeth being very sharp and very scary, they have a cool thing that they can do with their teeth wherein when their teeth get blunted and old, they'll fall right out of their mouth, just like your baby teeth at home will fall out. But our sharks have basically a conveyor belt system of teeth. So whenever their teeth get dull and fall out, they can replace individual teeth at a time. And this never ends. So throughout their life, they're constantly losing and replacing their teeth. Oh, that's an awesome view. Looks like our sandbar shark stole a little food there. What a little thief. Now we also have sandbar sharks, as you saw. We have nurse sharks, and we have two sawfish in this tank, a male and a female sawfish. Just gonna get out of the way of the aquarist right now. So we have a male and a female sawfish in this tank. The female sawfish is the largest animal here at the aquarium. She's about 13 feet long, and she weighs about, give or take, 500 pounds. So she's a really big one. And we also have one stingray in this tank, a rough-tailed stingray who you might see swimming around, as well as two green sea turtles in this tank. I can see one of them in the tank. I don't know where the other one is. Our green sea turtles are named Spot and Chewy. And I want to take a moment to talk about Spot and Chewy because I am a turtle fanatic. So Spot and Chewy are rescue sea turtles. They came to us originally from a basically turtle farm in Costa Rica. So they were raised with the intention of being eaten. And basically a university in Canada rescued them and was using them for scientific research. And then the researcher finished their research and had nowhere to put these turtles. So we were fortunate enough that we were opening right around that time. So we were able to take in Spot and Chewy and give them a nice home here at the aquarium. Spot and Chewy are both female green sea turtles. Spot is a little bit larger than Chewy. She's a little bit more of a glutton. She likes her food and does not like her exercise. So she's probably, to be honest, sleeping somewhere. Whereas Chewy is a little bit more active. Chewy's our athlete here. She can often be seen swimming around the tank. She loves exploring her exhibit, and she just puts more of her energy into exercise than Spot does. So they're different in their behaviors, but in addition to that, Spot also, like her namesake, has a spot on the back of her neck that allows us to identify her as well. Normally we'll feed Spot and Chewy right after the shark feeding. We take them, if you look right underneath where Andrew is standing, there's basically a little tunnel or little laneway, and we'll take Spot and Chewy into the back there. We have what is called an acclimation pool back there. And an acclimation pool is used for several different things, one of which being if we want to feed animals off exhibit, like Spot and Chewy. Additionally, we will use it for if we have a sick fish, an injured fish, a new fish that we don't want to put out in this massive exhibit just yet. We're able to house them back there, and that allows them to get used to the water and their new environment before we toss them out into this tank with 6,000 other fish. So we use that acclimation pool for several different things. So there you can see a Superman symbol as well. That's another one of the targets that our animals are trained to identify and go up to in order to get their food. So hopefully we'll see one approach that target soon. And Dave's going to try feeding another one of the Sandtiger sharks over here. This looks like it might be great. Awesome. That was great. I don't know if you got that, Katie. We also have male and female Sandtiger sharks. So the way you tell them apart is well, two things. Female sharks tend to be a lot bigger than male sharks, which is, I know, is a little counterintuitive. Oh, there's a great stream of the torpedoes as well. Male sharks tend to be smaller. And additionally, if you look underneath their body, sort of closer to their tail, males will have these two little tubes that are called claspers, and that is the male reproductive organ. So there they are. Thanks, Katie. So that is a male shark, whereas females don't have that. And you actually caught us at a really exciting time here at the aquarium. We are in the midst of our Sandtiger shark mating season. So they have been exhibiting some mating behaviors. And for sharks, mating and courtship is a touch violent. It involves a lot of biting. So male sharks will try and bite female sharks around the sides or their pectoral fins, which are the fins at the front of their body, in order to slow them down. Just gonna get out of the way of another aquarist here. Sorry. So you will notice that some of our female sharks might have little scrapes or cuts along their body. It's nothing to worry about. Female sharks' skin tends to be about 3 times thicker than male shark skin, just to accommodate those sort of quote unquote love bites, if you will. So we've noticed some of that behavior as well. It tends to happen at night here at the aquarium, the mating behavior, and we'll see the scars of it the next morning. So we've had a few of our males definitely approach some of the females. And interestingly, it's a great time to do some behavioral observation because their behavior changes around this time as well. Males tend to stop eating, or at least not eat as much during mating season. And we've noticed that. That's why, like I said, our aquarists will track how much food they're eating, because it's a great indication to know when we're sort of in the midst of shark mating season. It also is a great indication of whether we have any potentially sick animals that we want to get our vet to look at. So our males will stop eating, and then they'll start swimming really, really fast, and generally really fast around the top of the exhibit. And we do end up with an alpha male here. I'm not sure which one it is this year, but the alpha male will be patrolling basically the perimeter of the tank all the time, swimming very, very fast. Whereas our females, they slow right down, and they start swimming very, very slowly. And they basically start to hang out near the bottom or near the cave area that we have in our exhibit. So it's a darker area. And they try and just stay as incognito as possible. They try and disappear out of the tank so that the males can't find them. So we've noticed our biggest shark here, which is a female named Big Mama. She's been spending a lot of her time in the cave, just swimming circles around there to try and avoid any male attention. Jesse, I could go on, but in the interest of time, do you want to see if anyone has some questions?
Absolutely. I mean, this has been amazing, guys. The views are incredible. We've gotten so many live feedings. Like, this is rock. So Katie and Caitlin, thank you so much to both of you for all the great stuff so far. And yeah, let's dive in with questions. So we've got, I think, 30 people live with us on screen here. So we're going to take a lot of questions from them. I'll try and take some from YouTube as well. Typically, questions with the sharks tend to be around the same theme. So hopefully your question gets answered. But what I want to do now is just note, so Miss Baccaro's class, there's a whole bunch of you joining us. Let me know in the chat bar if you have a question. So you can just say, I have a question. I'll come to you and ask from there. And that'll be the way that we cover that. Just kick us off, though, I want to go to Ventura, California, to Miss Barajas. If you want to kick us off with a question, you are unmuted and go for it.
We wanted to ask was it a swordfish or?
Sawfish.
Oh, a sawfish.
Yeah.
So do those have teeth on the inside that we can't see?
Yeah, awesome question. So along their rostrum, which is the saw part of their body, they have teeth along the edge of that, but they do also, their mouth is underneath their body, and they do have teeth in their actual mouth. So oftentimes they'll use their saw as a mechanism of hunting. So they'll kind of swing it back and forth, not very gracefully, I should add, in order to try and impale prey, which is often small fish or shellfish, and then their mouth is underneath their body. They do have teeth. However, unlike our sharks, they're actually very blunted. So if you kind of feel the molars in your own mouth with your tongue, you know that they're very flat and blunted. That's similar to what our sawfish and stingray's teeth are like. I often date myself when I say this, but if you have ever played the game cribbage, their teeth look a lot like cribbage pegs.
Oh yeah, so dated, Caitlin. We saw you at the beginning. You're so there's the gray hairs that make it really sad. All right, great question, guys. To begin, I'm going to go to Edmonton to Ms. Rincon and her family. So if you guys want to come up and ask a question, and then we'll go to Tatla Lake right after. So Ms. Rincon, let's unmute your microphone. Bring you guys up for a question. Should work. Wants to work. There we go. Perfect.
There. Okay, so we did have a question, and it was about where and how did you get the sharks?
Oh, awesome question. Our animals come from a variety of places. Oftentimes, we'll get them from our sister aquariums. So we have 2 other Ripleys aquariums in the States. Some of our animals have come from them. Some, like Chewy and Spot, have been rescued. And some of our sharks have also come from the ocean themselves.
Fantastic. This is something that we cover in pretty much every one of our programs with Ripley's Aquarium is how they get animals. So one thing, actually, I want to harp on this. One thing that you can look for if you go to aquariums and zoos, which sort of highlights not only how the animals are cared for, but how they obtain their animals, is something called AZA or CAZA certification. Can you speak a little bit about that, Caitlin?
I sure can. You're also the only other person, just as a side note, who says AZA and not AZA, aside from me. Yeah, so we are accredited by AZA, which is the Association of Zoos and Aquariums. It's a very lengthy, in-depth accreditation, and we have to get re-accredited every 5 years. So what that means is we submit to people coming, AZA, people coming in to inspect our aquarium, inspect our procedure, make sure that our fish and reptiles, in the case of Spot and Chewy, are getting the best possible animal care that they can get. So we are actually coming up for accreditation this year before everything happens. So we're going to be getting re-accredited next year now. So yeah, it's a very lengthy, in-depth procedure, and it also creates a network too among AZA accredited organizations. So we all talk to each other all the time, and we share our information about caring for these animals. So it's a great resource for us as well as for the animals.
Fantastic. Always like to get that message in all our programs. All right.
Jesse, if you switch to my camera right now, I've got both turtles in view, which is a rare occurrence.
Never happened in the history of the aquarium.
Lots of people think we only have one because they only ever see one at a time, but they're both here.
Both here. Ah. Best interruption ever. That's awesome. They're so big. Okay, for anyone who might not have seen one of our sessions with turtle feeding at Ripley's Aquarium, check them out. You'll see how awesome these guys are up close. Thanks for that, Katie. How beautiful is that? Look, I'm being very unprofessional. We'll just stick on the turtle for a second. Then we'll take some more questions.
I can't blame you for that.
Yeah, nice. See,
So
you came for the sharks.
It looks like, if I'm not mistaken, Katie, is that Chewy in front of you? I believe it's Chewy.
I lost track because I had them both and I can't see the back of her head to tell, but I suspect it is Chewy. Yep.
We will clarify later. That's exciting. Awesome.
Generally, if the turtle is swimming around, it's Chewy. If the turtle is behaving more like a jellyfish and floating around, it's Spot.
Nice. Good to know. Best jellyfish impression. We're going to do that actually with all our kids at the end of the program. I'm going to have you guys do your best jellyfish impression when you leave this session today. All right. I want to go to Ricardo in Miss Vaquero's class. So Ricardo, you have a question, man. Your mic is demuted. Come on up.
Yeah. I got a question that is, why the great white shark can't be in an aquarium or in captivity?
Yeah, good question.
Why a great white shark can't be in captivity? Did I get that right?
Yep.
Okay. Perfect. Awesome question, buddy. There are a few reasons. Great white sharks can grow very, very big, and they also swim very, very fast. And they do something that is called RAM ventilation, so RAM ventilation. And what that means is they have to constantly be swimming in order to breathe. So the way that a lot of larger open sea types of sharks breathe is that they'll swim with their mouth slightly open, And as water passes through their mouth, it goes over their gills and out the sides. And the gills are the site where they actually take out the oxygen that they need to power their muscles. So they can actually never stop swimming because they'll stop that oxygen flow in their body. Again, this is not for every species of shark, but a lot of the larger open ocean species of sharks do that breathing strategy. So there's those three reasons. So they have to swim very fast. They have to swim in order to breathe. They get very big, which makes them not a great candidate for aquariums, just because you need such a massive tank in order to house that kind of animal. There have been some aquariums that have rescued great white sharks and had to maintain them in their aquarium, but it's for a very short amount of time. And oftentimes it's juveniles that they will maintain, again, for a very short amount of time, and then they'll release them.
Very cool. Thanks, Caitlin. I'm going to stick, no one needs to see me, so I'm going to stick the video with Katie for a minute so we can see some more cool sharks. And I want to go to Miss Gordon's group in Tatla Lake, BC. And then I'll come to you, Miss Baquero, in just a second with your family for a question. So Miss Gordon, if you want to demute your microphone. And so nice to see a classroom in a class. Oh, so good. But yeah, you're good to go.
All right, so Shiloh, why don't you wave so everybody sees who you are? Shiloh would love to work in an aquarium someday, and she's wondering what are the different kinds of jobs there and what kind of training do you need to be able to work in an aquarium?
Nice.
Oh, what a great question. Thank you for asking that question, Shiloh. Everyone here has a very different background, to be honest. So there's lots of different jobs here. We have our dive team, whose main responsibilities are doing dive shows, so public dive shows, as well as some experiences we offer here, like getting in the water to help feed our stingrays or diving in our shark tank. Those are other experiences that we offer guests that mainly our dive team runs. However, a lot of their job is also helping to clean the tank, so scrubbing down the acrylic, scrubbing down the decor. So all this lovely decor that you see in front of you is all fake. It's all made of concrete, rubber, and paint, and it accumulates algae very quickly, so we have to scrub it all the time. We are a little behind also because of our closure, so forgive our appearance. So diving is one. Generally, as long as you have your dive certification and or dive master certification, that can get you into our dive team. Myself as an educator, our educators also have very colorful backgrounds. Some people have degrees in marine biology or zoology or biology, something of the like. But others also are home ocean enthusiasts. So they're just very passionate individuals who want to share everything they've learned with other people. And the animal husbandry team, which is the team that you saw out here feeding all the animals, have very similar. They basically have the qualifications of a diver plus an educator. So they usually have a background in marine biology, aquatic biology, some sort of biology, as well as their dive certification. Every aquarist here will usually take care of maybe 1 to 3 tanks, and they oversee pretty much everything in terms of tank maintenance. So they are often responsible for cleaning their tank, which means they have to have that dive certification, prepping animal foods. They need to know about nutrition, as well as water quality. So they kind of have to have a little bit of chemistry in there. So it varies. Those are the 3 more animal care jobs, but we also have a slew of other jobs, whether it be guest services, attendants, like any other corporation. We have a human resources department. We have a slew of other more administrative jobs as well.
Yeah. But I like that message. I mean, not only is there a bevy of opportunities if you want to get involved in actual animal care or working with them, but I mean, we cover this whether it's conservation groups or space groups. I mean, if you want to be involved in NASA or a zoo or an animal conservatory, there's so many jobs that are involved in that. So whatever you happen to be interested in, you can put those services to use and skills to use at a place like Ripleys Aquarium. So very cool message. All right, I'm going to go to Miss Baquero herself. Again, joining us all the way in Mexico. So nice to have you guys in. So Ms. Baquero, if you want to demute your microphone, come on up with a question. You will be good to
go. In the tunnel, the glass can break.
Yeah, can the glass break in that tunnel there, guys? And what is it made of and how thick is it?
I hope not.
Katie, do you want to take this question since you're down there?
Sure. So it looks like glass, but it's actually a kind of plastic called acrylic, and it's very, very strong, so it won't break. Our thickest piece in the whole aquarium is 30 centimeters thick. The stuff here is more about 15 to 20 centimeters thick. But if it were glass, it would have to be several feet thick, and it would actually distort what you are being able to see, because it would be so thick. This acrylic is much actually stronger than glass.
Very cool. Quick follow-up on that, Katie. Actually, if you want to demute your microphone again for a second, why would in this tank with all the big sharks swimming around, why would you not have the thickest acrylic there? Where do you have the thickest acrylic, and why?
So our thickest acrylic is at our Pacific Kelp Forest exhibit, and it's a huge, tall tank, probably twice as tall as this one, and it's a straight panel. So just the physics of it having to hold all that water back, it needs to be that much thicker. The curvature on this one adds to the structure, and there's actually probably only maybe 2 or maybe 3 feet of water above the top of the tunnel. So if I stood on top of the tunnel, my head would be out of the water.
Yeah, there you go. Thanks, Katie. All right, I'm going to keep the camera on you while I ask this next one. So we are going to come back to our live groups. We are whipping through these questions. Great questions, everyone. I wanted to pass along a few from YouTube while we're waiting. So in Guelph, a grade 7 class wanted to know, do any of the sharks have symbiotic relationships with any of the fish or other creatures in the tank with them?
Oh, that's an awesome question. Not our sharks. I mean, our sharks, especially our nurse sharks, have a relationship with each other. Nurse sharks are notorious for cuddling with each other, quote unquote. And our nurse sharks spend a lot of time among themselves. Not as much a symbiotic relationship, well, kind of. Spot, our turtle, has what is essentially a posse of porkfish who will follow her around. Yeah, who will follow her around a lot of the time. I saw them together actually yesterday morning, and they'll pick at the folds in her skin to try and pick off any parasites. So that is sort of the most of a symbiotic relationship that occurs in this tank, wherein Spot gets those little parasites and pests removed, and our porkfish get a nice little meal. But the best example of a symbiotic relationship within the aquarium and in the ocean is usually the one of coral. So coral is made up of a couple different organisms. They have coral polyps, which are basically like if you take a jellyfish and flip it upside down and shrink it really, really small, that's a coral polyp. So it's a small, clear invertebrate. And as they build up their calcium carbonate structure, they actually get an algae that will live inside that calcium carbonate structure and provide them with about 90% of the nutrients that they need to survive. And the coral will provide the algae with a home near the sun that they need to photosynthesize. So that's kind of the best example that I can think of right now of a mutually beneficial symbiotic relationship in the ocean.
Nice. Fantastic, Caitlin. All right. I love this question from Satara and Maimuna. So Satara and Maimuna, I swear they're in like every one of our sessions all over the last 3 months. So huge thanks to you ladies for joining us. Satara wants to know, do sharks have something like a nest in which they lay eggs? And if you could elaborate on this with whether sharks do lay eggs, and some of them might, and tell us a little bit about it, Caitlin.
Fantastic question. I love this topic. Sharks do every reproductive strategy that you can think of. Not so much nest building, but we have sharks here. Again, generally, the smaller species that mainly inhabit reef areas and rocky areas are egg layers. So what they'll do is females will develop an egg inside their body, males will fertilize it in there, and then they will excrete it, kind of like a chicken. Think of like a chicken egg. And their eggs are coated with this almost like a jelly adhesive layer. So they'll excrete this egg, and the females will basically stick it or glue it to a hidden area in their environment and leave it to develop. So we have a number of species that exhibit that reproductive strategy, like our smaller bamboo sharks and epaulet sharks, to name a few. Our Sandtiger sharks, which are the big ones that were being fed, and the ones that I said were in their breeding season right now, they have internal fertilization as well and internal development. The cool thing they do is they do something called intrauterine cannibalism. And what this means is, as you saw, males have 2 claspers, females have 2 oviducts. So they can usually essentially lay about 5 eggs in each oviduct, so 10 in total. And what happens is males will fertilize those eggs. And I do want to say, during mating season, different males can fertilize those eggs. So there is potential for one female carrying 10 eggs to have 5 different shark fathers, quote unquote.
Cool.
Yeah, so the way that they reproduce is those eggs will develop and then hatch within the mother. And the ones that hatch first they're usually the biggest, they've gotten fertilized first, so they've developed faster. They're just farther along in the process of development, and they would have the best success at becoming an adult. So inside the mother, the first ones that hatch will eat all of the other developing eggs. So one Sandtiger shark will only ever produce 2 offspring.
Very cool. I think we're going to do a Halloween episode just on that topic.
It's amazing, isn't it?
It is amazing. It's very cool. All right. I want to go to Jose Miguel in Miss Becaro's class. If you want to come up, man, let's just demute your mic and you're good to go.
How many sharks are there?
In the aquarium? In the tank with them?
Yes.
Yeah, perfect.
Great question. We have 10 Sandtiger sharks, 3 nurse sharks, and 2 sandbar sharks.
And a partridge in a pear tree. Awesome. You know what? We are getting near the end of time. So what I want to do is make sure we get some questions that are really, really important to get in. So one is, if people end this session and you want them to have one takeaway about sharks that they should leave this broadcast with and sort of go promote further learning, what would that be, Caitlin?
I would say sharks are friends. Our sharks, I know, have this bad reputation, which is that they are bloodthirsty and ferocious and out to attack humans. It is a very, very unfounded. Like I mentioned, these sharks here are Hollywood sharks. They're very, very docile. Sharks are curious, however, and that's what leads to this bad reputation, is that sharks do approach people, and people also need to be a little more careful when they're in the shark's environment, because it is the shark's home, so we are guests in their home. And they will come up and approach people because they are curious animals. However, they're not out to eat humans. They do not like us. We do not taste good to them. Fish taste good to them. So I want to just emphasize that these animals are very docile, and it's actually humans that are the bigger threat to sharks, not the other way around. Humans hunt sharks purposely for their fins, which can be used in some dishes or remedies or a few things. So we do a process called shark finning, wherein fishermen will catch sharks, remove all of their fins, and then toss the shark back even while it is still alive. So we kill about 100 million sharks every single year, whereas sharks generally, any shark attacks are in the single digits per year. So it's very, very few.
Fantastic, Caitlin. I'm always glad when we get that across in any of our shark programs. So not only with you guys, but we work with, we just did a session on sharks in the Galapagos right before this, actually. So sharks is a big topic that we like to cover here all June and September long, certainly when we really focus on oceans, but year round as well. So go home, educate yourself. We hope you've learned a lot today on sharks and Sandtiger sharks in particular. And, you know, like all animals in the wild, respect them. If you respect wild animals, they're unlikely to ever be in a situation where you're likely to get hurt. And, you know, try not to fear them. They're beautiful. They're fantastic, as we got a chance to see today. Caitlin, I want to make sure that kids who finish this program, in addition to checking out our other YouTube broadcasts with you guys here at Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants, where can they go to learn more about what you guys are doing at Ripleys Aquarium of Canada?
Well, you can tune in every single day this week. We are doing special World Oceans Day/week content where we're going to explore a different environment here at the aquarium each day. So just check out our Facebook page. We try and post live content on there several times a week. We also have a Ripleys Aquarium at home page that you can check out with lots of activities that you can do at home. And we have our live cameras. So we actually have live cameras set up in several exhibits where you can see the animals swimming around in their home.
Fantastic. I'm linking this into the YouTube chat bar right as we speak. So all our people tuning in from literally Ontario, Saskatchewan, Quebec, Alberta, BC, across California, the US, and Mexico can check that out. I encourage you to do so. It's a really fantastic facility with some great stuff going on. So yeah, tune in, keep learning going when you're done. Caitlin, Katie, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much for taking us through today.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, ladies, as you know, what we do at the end of every broadcast is I'm going to demute the microphones of all our live groups joining us in California, Alberta, British Columbia, and Mexico. So boys and girls in all our classes, unmute your mics, join with me in saying a big thank you to our teen education team at the aquarium. You should all be demuted. Go for it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys,
Bye.
for joining in. Bye, everyone. We'll wish you a wonderful rest of your day and keep learning about some awesome sharks.